All right. Happy to be here with everybody tonight. My name is Chris Rogers. We're going to begin with just a quick round of introductions. Really excited. This is our second time doing this info session for this program. I'm just really excited to both, like you said, build relationships with you all, learn about the places that you steward and projects, places that are important and sacred to you all, and talk about the benefits of this national program, which is on the rise. Just celebrated, what's the last, it celebrated how many years? Eight, nine? Which number are we at?
We're going into our seventh year.
Seventh year. Okay, okay. So just really excited to talk about that. I'm Chris Rogers. I'm a research fellow with the Center for the Preservation of Civil Rights Sites at the University of Pennsylvania, but also, I guess a two-time, winner of this program. First, supporting the Paul Robeson House and Museum in West Philadelphia, which was in 2020 when we were awarded. And then also this 2023, last year, with the Henry Ossawa Tanner House in North Philadelphia. And just have, just an amazing network of folks from around the country to be a part of. And it's just an amazing project. So that's just a little bit about me, and I'll be your moderator today. But now I want to pass it to Amber Wiley um, to tell you more about CPCRS.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. If you hear any background noise on my end, it's because I'm at the Denver airport. My travel plans got messed up thanks to, what's her name? Winter Storm Ember. Uh, but I'm actually sitting here waiting to go to Philly with a whole bunch of other people who are waiting to go to Philly as well. Um, so the Center for I'm the Matt and Erica Nord, director of the Center for the Preservation of Civil Rights Sites. I started in that position July 1 of last year. So saying that, I should also say Happy New Year, since we're still within that season of New Year's greetings. The Center for the Preservation of Civil Rights Sites advances the understanding and sustainable conservation of heritage places that commemorate American civil rights histories, as well as Black American heritage. We are a part of the Whitespin School of Design at the University of Pennsylvania. We often engage in projects both in Alabama through our partnership with Tuskegee, as well as in Philadelphia, trying to work with a lot more Black heritage stewards across the city to protect very important sacred places in that city, since I'm not there right now. That's about it for me. I'll pass it along. Shall I pass it along to Steph? Are you going to introduce yourself and then we can go to Alaska?
Oh, sure. I can introduce myself. Hi, everyone.
Awesome.
I'm Steph Garcia. I am the project manager for the Center for Preservation of Civil Rights Sites, focusing on Philadelphia. So programming, events, working with interns. I do all of that, and I'm really happy to see that we have such a great attendance. So thank you for joining.
Yes, and our guest of honor today, if you will, from the National Historic Trust, Saving Places, as I like to call them in short, Alaska McInnes. Welcome. And I just want to give just like a quick introduction, and then I'll set the intention for tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you all for extending the invite for a second time. This is one of our favorite webinars to host so far. My name is Alaska McInnes, and I am the director of the National Grants Program for the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, which is based in the National Trust for Historic Preservation. I'm here to discuss some of the grant opportunities that are currently open within the Action Fund, two of them being specifically the National Grant Program and the Conserving Black Modernism initiatives. So thank you again for the opportunity, and I look forward to the evening.
Thank you. So we're about to go into a presentation in a minute, but I wanted to just take time before we started to set the intention for tonight. When we started this last year, we really saw it as a twofold opportunity. One, the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund, I think, is one of the leading national programs for investing into preserving Black heritage sites. And it's really still like continuing to build and grow. We were just at the Cultural Preservation Leadership Summit in November in New York, and you just got to see the wonderful community that was there as it continues to build and has continues to find more funders and donors and to bring them more into not only protecting and serving these sites, but also what they can create in our communities in terms of protecting and sustaining our community. So it's one about learning about this program, how to put your best foot forward in a very competitive grant landscape. And I'll allow Alaska to talk more about that during the presentation. But two, even more importantly, it's about building community and building relationships. Particularly as we have we started from like a play space where some of us are in Philadelphia. We're also thankful for some of our guests, but learning about the different ideas, projects, possibilities that folks are meditating around and thinking about putting into this program. As we said, it's a very competitive grant program, but that doesn't mean that there is the only opportunity that is available to us. So I think it's important while we're here to share ideas, to share what we're working on, to share our dreams for the spaces that we work with, so that we can kind of find ways to support one another, to uplift one another, and share different opportunities as they come around. So it's kind of both. One, let's learn about this program. Let's ask questions, figure out how to put our best foot forward. But two, let's figure out how to get to know one another better, figure out how we can continue to collaborate and be of support to one another within, even and beyond this program. So I'm really excited. We should have time for about for Q&A later and asking folks to be able to share at any point while we're in webinar style. If you have a question and you need to write it down, you want to go to the bottom of your screen. There's a Q&A function, and you can put your question within there, and we'll come back to it during the Q&A portion. Or feel free to use the chat. And there's two functions. Make sure that you're on Zoom. There's a host, and you might see two hosts and panelists. That goes only to us, this group. But if you want everyone to see it, you want to change from host and panelist to everyone so that everyone could benefit by seeing what you have shared. So please continue to introduce yourself as many have. And without any further ado, we'll begin to open it up and get into our slides for this evening. Oh, it doesn't see an option for everyone? Oh man, let's see what I can do. I'm gonna see if I can work on that, Narissa. Sorry about that. I know it's usually set up like that. You know, we're still figuring out this thing. But I think Steph's going to set up our slides and Alaska is going to walk them through. And I'm see if I can do anything about the chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much. As we stated earlier, I am coming to you all from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and we are going to be talking about some initiatives that exist within the African American Cultural Heritage Action Fund. We refer to it as the Action Fund for short. So if I pivot there, if you know what I'm referring to. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give you a quick agenda for this presentation. I wanted to go over the National Grant Program, which is the longest grant-making program within the Action Fund. Next, I will discuss the Conserving Black Modernism Grant Program, which is the newest initiative to kind of come on board here at the Action Fund. I will discuss the application process timeline, the grant management system that we utilize, and some tips to remember before we kind of pivot into Q&A. Next slide. So just to give you a little bit of information on the Action Fund altogether, it is, of course, based in the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and it is actually a multi-year $70 million initiative committed to crafting a narrative that expands our view of history by telling the full story of African American history and its sites to promote a national identity that reflects the nation's true diversity. The Action Fund is the largest preservation effort ever undertaken in support of African American historic sites. Next slide. The Action Fund has entered, as we discussed earlier briefly, the 7th year for our National Grant Making Program. As you all may know, or as all of us know here, I'm sure, America has had and maintained a rich history, but has been very poor in representing it and funding its protection, conservation, and recognition. Since 2018, we have vetted over 4,000 project proposals, requesting roughly $500 million. So the need is incredible. Through the Action Fund, we've been able to actually fund 200 projects, adding up to roughly $20 million in support for projects nationwide. Next slide. So here are some high-level kind of bits of information regarding the National Grant Program, which is currently open and accepting applications. This program has been created to advance ongoing preservation activities for historic places, sites, museums, etc. The funding categories for support are four, and they are the capital projects, organizational capacity and operations, programming and interpretation, project planning. And the awards range from $50,000 to $150,000, depending on the program. For example, capital projects and organizational capacity, both of those are at the higher end in terms of awards. Programming and interpretation, that one is the max you can receive via that program is $50,000, and project planning is $75,000. Eligible applicants include 501c3 nonprofits and public agencies. So I'll get more into some detail in terms of these funding categories later on if you all have any questions, but each one has its own caps in terms of funding availability. Obviously, the most popular and most competitive category is capital projects, given the incredible need around preserving specific sites across the country. Next slide. Here is a really good example of one of our most recent grantees. This is the Ideas Lab out of Kentucky, and they are developing essentially an app where visitors can engage in this space. It's called the Unknown Project Augmented Reality app, and they received a grant for programming and interpretation. Next slide, please. The other grant program I wanted to discuss with you all this evening is Conserving Black Modernism. This is an exciting partnership that we have with Getty. This program specifically was designed to empower and equip preservationists and stewards with funding and technical support to preserve the material heritage, innovation, and legacy of modern architectural sites that were designed specifically by Black architects. So the program will support eligible project planning activities and seek to develop future-looking plans that model and strengthen stewardship, interpretation, and asset management. Next slide. So a lot of information here, but the biggest takeaway for Conserving Black Modernism is, again, this is centered around 20th century modernism and sites designed by Black architects. So several different sites that could apply for this support. I've listed some of them here in terms of community centers, churches, HBCUs, schools, and other nonprofits. This is a unique opportunity in that it's not capital focused. There is some limited capital improvements available in terms of funding, but for the most part, this is a planning kind of grant. And all of the awards that come through Conserving Black Modernism will be $150,000 as a flat amount. And it's an incredible opportunity in that it would mean a partnership with Getty, which is a huge opportunity for organizations to create that opportunity for themselves. And the next slide. So this is one of our most recent, well, one of the first to receive support through modernism. This was Morgan State University's Jenkins Hall. They received $150,000 most recently for a conservation management plan for this particular building. And now getting into the timeline. So there is a full application that we have open now, whereas we used to have a LOI process followed up by a full application invite. We've decided to move to a one-step kind of full application for all of those interested in receiving support, and that's for both modernism and for the National Grant Program. And that application is open now for both and due on February 1st. So that's an important date to mark on your calendars. From there, folks will be notified if they are moving forward in the next kind of phase of evaluation, in which we will offer technical support and assistance. This is to kind of dig deeper into the application that was submitted, ask questions, and clarify items that may have been included in the original application, but may fall outside of our parameters in terms of eligibility. So some examples of ineligible activities or expenses would be anything that is any expenses that have occurred outside of the grant payment process or period. So if you have expenses that predate the award, they wouldn't be able to be included in the in this particular application, or costs that are specific to catering or entertainment. So that's where we really work with you to make sure that all parts of the application are applicable to the criteria by which you've submitted your application in the category. Following that period, we will work on the back end to make some decisions, which are always incredibly difficult, and we will make our announcements. We moved it back. Typically, these go out around Juneteenth, but this year we'll be making those announcements in July, letting folks know that they have received the support. And usually we move forward from there. After the award letter, folks will receive grant agreements, and we work on the back end to ensure that all necessary documentation is provided so that we can make the payments to organizations as agreed. Next slide, please. Some really important kind of tips to remember just to make everyone's life easier, to make sure you're not missing anything. If you do plan on submitting an application for either one of these programs, please save these email addresses to your folder so that none of these notifications will go to spam. The first being the Action Fund grants@savingplaces.org. Those are emails that are coming from folks on my team specifically, letting you know the status of your application, or even just asking questions as points of clarity. And then the administrator@grantinterface.com, which is coming directly from Foundent, the grant management system that we have and that we utilize to evaluate requests. Another tip for folks is when you're submitting information or writing out your application, note that spaces do count in the overall character count. You will get a notification as you're looking to establish your profile. You'll get a warning in the system if your organization exists in the system. So if your EIN number already exists in the system, you will get a notification. And if that happens, please don't hesitate to reach out to us so that we can get you the proper login so that you can move forward with the application. All questions with an asterisk, that is a required question. So that wouldn't allow you to skip or submit without addressing it. And if you have any questions that you really need to get to us for any points of clarity, it's always so much better to just send us an email as opposed to phone calls, just because we are a pretty small team, and we usually receive with every grant process roughly 600 to 700 applications. And out of those, we have to usually get that number down to 30, somewhere in that range. So there's if you can imagine, a fair amount of volume. We try to get to it as best as we can, but email is always better. Another point to make note of, applications are due at 11:59 local time. Of course, there's always a lot of application activity in the evening before the deadline. And it's always, in my opinion, a bit of a risk to go into your application to go to submit it, because as much as I would love to be available, I probably won't be at 11:40 the night before the deadline, and it could really jeopardize your ability to submit for the year. So please try to make sure that you're in the application and working on it to get it to a place of submission before the close of business on the day before the due date. If you may have some issues, we can try and address them in a timely manner. And next slide. That's it. Thank you so much for your time. Again, that's that email address, the Action Fund Grants at savingplaces.org. We have a small team, but we have a team that is dedicated to kind of reviewing and catching these emails and responding to our grantees and our prospective grantees in a timely manner. So this is where you would want to share your inquiries. Thank you again for your time. And now I'm ready for any points of questions or clarity.
Thank you, thank you so much, Alaska, for opening us up. I will also say, I think Steph, and the website is here. I think we also tried to send it out and post it where folks were registering so that you can access. There's much more information available on the website as well. We're really excited to get into our, conversation tonight. We do have one question in the queue already from Charlene. I would like as I mentioned, it is about hearing what folks have been thinking about. I will big up the Saving Places team in terms of always helping us like figure in the times that I have worked with them, helping us figure out how to put the best application forward. That's always been their sort of like way of working and communicating. So I will say like having an opportunity to kind of share what you're working, don't feel like it slights you in any way. All of it, particularly in preservation, it also always can get messy as well. So I see two questions. Charlene, if you're open, I would like want to come to you to allow you to sort of like ask your question on your own. So thinking you can also share a bit of like the context of what you're thinking about and what you're working on. So if you're in a space to be able to do so, I'm gonna go ahead and click allow to talk.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hey, good evening. Um, so I think that actually my initial question was, are farms considered modernist sites of design and architecture? But um I think that the fund that my project would more likely fit in or, apply under is the Action Fund National Grant program. I guess maybe we can apply for multiple, but this one is the one that I think. Um, so I am where do I start? Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman, many people know about her legacy and its beginnings in Maryland. I am in deep relationship for over a decade with two gay Black women who live on the land where Harriet brought her brothers and her parents out of enslavement. And myself and my wife, made a short film about them called The Aunties last year. And we are a part of their network of nieces and nephews that work with them on projects like what we've done, a film, but we also work with them on the farm. And they are engaging us in a lot of conversation about like the legacy of the farm and the future of the farm. And so we're a part of um, a dream team, is what they call us, of nieces and nephews who are sort of handling various aspects of preservation of the farm site. Um, their farm also is a researched stop on the Underground Railroad, in that they have an award-winning, the largest tulip poplar tree in Caroline County. They're in Preston, Maryland, Caroline County. And they have the largest tulip poplar in the county. recognized by the, arborist society, agricultural societies, the state of the state. And it is known as the witness tree, which we also include when we talk about aunties. We include it to be an auntie as well. And the witness tree is where, um, people would stop to pray as they were as they were leaving the farm, which is also known to be a way station. Um, so if you think about like encountering the farm, you arrive at the farm as a way station, and then you leave the farm via the witness tree and, prayer for a safe journey to your next stop. So there are a number of sites even on that site. There's also a burial ground, a small burial ground. The site is formerly the Thompson Plantation, and so it's thought that the people buried there were um, relatives of that lineage, but then there are unmarked graves also there that are thought to be graves of enslaved people, unnamed enslaved people.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it this touches on so my question was about modernist sites of design and architecture, because also that farmhouse that they live in is 200 plus years old. um but as I'm looking at the themes, I'm wondering about, it's a heritage site indeed, but also what my aunts have done there is also legacy work for their legacy. So it kind of falls into so many different themes. Like it's both a site of enslavement, but it's also now an LGBTQ history site as well because of the lives that these two gay women have lived there. So my question has shifted to um if a site, undoubtedly most sites probably do hold many themes. But I'm just thinking about um how to, well, one, does it fit? Does it seem like it fits? And two, if if you have like overwhelming themes for your site, you know.
Um, I do, like, as you already mentioned, the challenge would be to narrow down exactly where it would fit. And usually the easiest way to get to that, right, is to define how this funding would impact your larger goal. Like what impact would this funding have, or are you looking to ensure happens as a result of receiving this award? And what's the work that needs to happen now? Where is the urgency? Is it around the physical space, the farm itself? Are there capital needs that just have to be addressed? Or is there integrity there? You're good on the capital, but there is a very real need to find a way to tell the story. And then you're getting into programming and interpretation. But is there a larger need to kind of step back and do just really base level planning around all of these things, to just start the process of thinking strategically about a 5-year plan around this space? So it's we would be asking you questions about the priority and where the urgency is, across all of these categories, to help you really build out a strong application. because it's important to note that across all categories, the most competitive ones are the ones that demonstrate readiness. They demonstrate a well thought out plan to receive the funding and hit go, and they're ready. There's not a lot for us to help them map out. But if you're still very early in building out that concept, it is probably better to wait until a lot of those questions can be answered, because again, the process is so competitive, that we are in a place where we have to choose the ones that demonstrate the capacity to execute almost as soon as the funding is received. Because again, each category, as you may know, has a time frame. So for capital, that's 18 months and it has to be complete. For programming interpretation, I believe that one is a year. So we would absolutely kind of discuss with you offline, send us an email, and try to help you narrow down exactly where this process, or this not the process, but this application would fit in terms of category. But a lot of our questions to you would be around which place demonstrates the most urgency, and then we would just essentially go from there. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I did see Charlene respond. Would love that. Thank you. Yes, and thank you.
Right.
So thank you so much, that Alaska. The next question is pretty straightforward one from Vashti Dubois, the amazing The Color Girls Museum and other projects as well. Is can we apply as a fiscally sponsored organization? Are they eligible?
Yes. Yes, you
Thank you.
can. We have lots of orgs with fiscal sponsors and we welcome them.
Yes, thank you so much. Narissa, are you open to, would you like to, share via, talking for a minute, or we can just answer your answer your question? Okay, there you go.
Hi. Oh yeah, I forgot. I lost my voice. But good evening. Um, this is outside of the question that I have in the Q&A, which is pretty straightforward. But just thinking about Charlene's comment, it made me remember about the rural landscapes, and specifically how it's described as advancing solutions to grow local economies and enhance heritage tourism. For the last year and a half, I've been getting to know and meet with different town leaders of the remaining historical all Black towns in the state of Oklahoma. And they are definitely within the rural area. And even though my company, One Epiphany, we focus on marketing strategies, this is where trying to identify how they can develop their local economies through the help of destination marketing or tourism development. And so this is where their funds are extremely low and tight. And given that recent legislature as of last year was passed in the state of Oklahoma for these towns to be a part of the civil rights trail in Oklahoma, they have so much history, and anyway, I'm here because I would love to be able to pass on information to them so that they can use, not necessarily this time, but use this year to plan on how they might be able to apply for the grant next year or whenever it reopens again. And so I think that the rural landscapes would be the best option. And are there any past grant recipients that you could potentially offer, or other guidance that I might not know to ask for, so that that information can be shared with the town leaders?
Absolutely. So We definitely have other rural landscape like locations that are specific to the national grant program that have received support in previous years. I'm not, I can't think of them off the top of my head just because I'm about a year in in this role, but I am grateful that we've had like a pretty consistent practice of sharing and publishing a little bit of detail and the names of all of our recipients from each year on the website. So that information would be available to you if you wanted to take a look at past recipients and finding those that would be more specific to the site you're looking to share some information with. And in terms of just the planning part, in terms of getting ready for the upcoming year, I guess my point of clarity would probably be the same, just around understanding their more specific needs in the realm of preservation. Because again, that's always going to be the core goal in terms of how the support is being allocated. So, and you may have described that a little bit, but I think I may have kind of missed that. But in the end, yes, I think that you've got the right idea in terms of introducing them to the Action Fund, introducing them to the work, and then having them go through, again, there's a lot of information on the site, go through the eligibility criteria and the guidelines and ensure that they're able to really clearly describe the potential impact of the support they're applying for. That is so hugely impactful for the readers. The feedback that I'm hearing, having gone through maybe, how many has it been? 4 cycles so far. The applications that stand out are the ones that, again, demonstrate readiness via the partnerships that they've established on their own, from the community and other stakeholders in the community. And also they demonstrate an understanding of how this 50,000 or 150,000 moves the needle for their work in a very detailed and clear way.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, and thank you, Narissa, for pushing through, and wishing your voice comes back, pretty soon. Um, and Christina, are you open to share verbally? Okay, here we come.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right, great. First of all, I just want to thank you so much for this. This is very helpful, and I'm just very appreciative of it. I'm curious about projects that look at Black landscapes, and how much you all would fund like multimedia type projects or like documentaries or even I'm just trying to think of another example, like a public art project that would be like a permanent installation or something like that in this work. I'll just say a little bit. I'm going back and forth between maybe one or 2 projects where one, I would be working with a Black jazz institution that has its own physical space that they own in a gentrifying district. And oh, I should do AC too. I wasn't even the ones I was going to say. That's a good point, Chris. Maybe 3 projects now. But the first 2 I was thinking were in Philly. And yeah, like we created a smaller documentary that touched on a collection of sites that they would have like jam sessions at, or that younger, jazz musicians would play. But it really just scratched the surface, and they're looking to create a larger story, but also relating to the sustainability of it as a Black jazz institution. So more like maybe organizational capacity building. So I'm thinking about that, or I'm also thinking about doing some type of like public art project or creative storytelling or placemaking project, like on Cecil B. Moore and Columbia Ave, which used to be a historically Black jazz area, with a collection of like Black-owned jazz businesses. And same thing in Atlantic City. So yeah, I'm just curious about if you think that that would be something that this would fund, or would it be somewhat out of the realm?
Yes, I mean the short answer is yes. And this sounds like it would fall most squarely in the programming and interpretation category for the National Grant Program. One of the criteria there is specific to designing, producing, marketing materials and or other media communications for projects of national significance. But it's all around like artists, creatives, and scholars reimagining sites, interpretation, that kind of thing. That sounds like that would fit squarely in that category. I don't know that we have to date funded a documentary, like the production of a documentary. I don't know that it is not considered an ineligible item as of now, but I would be wary of building out an application exclusively around the creation of a documentary. I would, this is one that would probably be like a quick meeting with our staff to get some more understanding around exactly what you're looking to do. But I know that the category that this sounds like it would best fit under is definitely programming and interpretation.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Next up in the queue, Sarita, are you open to talk it through? I'm gonna go ahead and allow you to talk.
Oh, it's on like popcorn. Party people, good day, good day. Thank y'all for opening the space for us to ask questions, and shout out to Preservation Grants for the 99s and the 2000s. My name is Sarita Gates. I'm the founder of the Gates Preserve, a multimedia experience company committed to archiving and preserving hip hop in such a way that lasts forever. And so, what I was thinking about as it relates to this grant, I do not have space, unfortunately, but I was thinking about possibly doing a mapping project around specific sites, whether in New York, specifically, I'm thinking about like New York and Chicago, that are pertinent in the hip hop space, but that aren't necessarily the Sedgwick Avenue, right? So, like for example, if we're talking about hip hop, we have to talk about the Carter Building. You know what I'm saying? Like the Carter in Sugar Hill, or thinking about whether it's 10, 20 different sites that might have been like named in lyrics, Marcy Projects, Queensbridge Projects, etc., South Jamaica Queens, and kind of like definitely bring on some young folks to do a mapping project that one gets them excited about what are the areas in their community that they might not necessarily think is linked with hip hop, but two, to possibly create a living archive after that is like, all right, yes, we know there are hush tours where you can go to, where Cool Herc and Cindy was getting it popping for their first jam, but here are the other locations inside the city that people might not think about as it relates to hip hop, and the importance of not only preserving those sites, but starting a conversation around everything that is associated with hip hop needs to be preserved in a particular way, because we don't want the same thing to happen to hip hop that has happened to jazz, that has happened to blues, that has happened to any Black and brown art form in the history of the world. So I was just wondering, is that some type of, and then I was going to partner with a nonprofit to make this happen because we are for profit, but I was wondering, is like this mapping project idea something that you all would fund?
Yes. Mapping is definitely an effort that is called out under the programming and interpretation category. So it would absolutely fall within the criteria there. The exciting part is hip hop, as we know, just turned 50. So that is actually a benchmark in our world in terms of understanding like like in terms of the world of preservation and how we evaluate sites and whether or not they meet the criteria for support around most of our eligibility is that 50-year mark. So that's really exciting. And so, yes, this would definitely fit. I understand that, hey, capacity is an issue for a lot of orgs, but please do keep us in mind. This sounds really exciting and something we would love to read and see in that number of applicants for the National Grant Program for sure.
Yes, thank you so much. And I also see some love in the chat for you. So thanks for sharing a bit about your story, your inspiration, your dream, and definitely look forward to supporting it. And I see we got some Philly work that we need to add into this mix somehow too. All right. Next up in our mix is Judith Robinson. Are you open to kind of talk your idea through, Miss Judith? I'm gonna go ahead and hit the allow to talk.
Yes, good evening, you all, and Happy New Year. Yeah, this is great. And I just want to say how happy I am to be a part of this process. We won an award, so we're happy to build on that. So, in the spirit of amplifying our community, because the house that we're working on is the Friends of Tanner House, it's in the heart of North Philadelphia. And we are thinking of a project. We have a tour guide training program. Someone else earlier talked about tourism. And we are thinking of working towards the year 2026, the 250th anniversary of Declaration of Independence. And using tour guide training, historic history of our community to amplify tourism. We're one of the 3 historic landmarks in North Philadelphia. Maybe we could even partner with others on a docent at the historic Church of the Advocate, which has a whole lot of history. You all come visit us for tours. And I'm just wondering, how would an economic workforce development project mesh with your funding?
So off the top of my head, I don't I'm struggling there because I've not seen one. I don't know that we funded a project like this to date, but it doesn't mean that it wouldn't fit if I had a little bit more detail on the end goals. It may fit someplace, actually, even if it's not within the action fund, there may be a place for it at the trust. But again, it's always kind of tracing that that link back to the larger goal. So I feel like there may be a through line through interpretation, possibly, because again, through the training part, but this would definitely be a follow-up and a little bit more, a deeper conversation around what you're looking to accomplish. But I think it may.
Sure, because I definitely would like to expound on that, because we're using the history of the community. It certainly has, from all decades of our story, definitely civil rights. With the Tanner family, we have Sadie Tanner Alexander and her husband, Raymond Pace Alexander. They certainly were heavy into civil rights and were very much a part of the Girard College story. And it goes all the way back, as a matter of fact, to Nathan Moselle, who was part of this story too, who sent the first young man to Girard College to try to integrate that. So it's certainly a story. And we would tell these stories and do all kinds of interpretations, etc., everything that we could do using multimedia, etc. But the ultimate goal would be to provide economic development. So if we have to kind of isolate that and then just tell the stories, because we have it there. The Tanner House was purchased by Bishop, I should say, Benjamin Tucker Tanner in 1872. So we're going to use that history and be able to tell that story all the way from there. So I'll reach out to you in that regard, because we certainly can think of all kinds of ways to interpret this story. It definitely is an African-American history story all over. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yes, thank you so much. So I'm getting I saw some other additional questions come up in the chat. Um, I think it was another one from Charlene. And I'll just be able to share this quickly. Does funding need to be received through the actual site, or can the organization producing the work be like receive the funds? Does the funding need to be received through the actual site, or the organization producing the work on behalf of the site receive the funds?
Yes. So and this is through a fiscal agent kind of relationship. Am I to understand that correctly? So the answer is yes. So the way it works with the trust is the organization that's seeking out the support would go through the process as usual in terms of submitting the application. And it is when we get to the place where we're looking to actually submit or like offer the payment and I'll enter the payment into our system is when we would engage in the process of pulling in the fiscal agent. Again, am I interpreting that correctly? Oh, no, we just manage a lot of business for them. It's easier. Okay, let's see. So again, that's fine. At the end of the day, if this is an organization that is not a nonprofit, we find ways, even for those that are in situations where they've lost their nonprofit status, we can find ways to work with them to find other pass-through organizations to support the grant, as long as there's documentation in place to facilitate that. It's not a barrier that we've run into to date. We're able to be really flexible in that regard. So we're grateful for the trust for allowing us that leniency to ensure that the funding gets where it needs to go.
Thank you so much. I saw this one. I just want to lift up from Donna Stevens. Hello, everyone. I represent the Chattahoochee Brick Company Descendants Coalition and would like to restore the brick kilns that were filled with bricks. The Chattahoochee Brick Company was a convict leasing site featured in Slavery by Another Name by Doug Blackman. Seems like an important project. Certainly, as 6:57, we promised to do about an hour and come to a close. I really want to hold space that folks, if you have an opportunity right now to be able to share, if there's anywhere where folks can, find more about your project, to make sure that you put those within the chat. We'll be saving the chat. If there are any relevant links that we can add to our website, we'll try to put them on the mix as well. So please, in our sort of like final minutes together, please, any projects or any way we can follow up, such as Charlene's amazing documentary that she made with her amazing aunties about said farm. I think folks would love to see that. Yeah. And yes, the Gates Preserve. Please look up the Gates Preserve. Also, Sarita is a Lego master. Look up Sarita, like search. Do some searches. I ain't gonna say what it is. Do some Googles. You're gonna find some amazing stuff. Guys, man, thank you so much. Thank you for your amazing work with the Trust as a fellow. Yes, in DC as well, HBCUs and academics. Everyone look that up. All right.
Yeah, this
Okay.
I've been silent because I've been sitting here in this airport, but I want to say really, Chris in Alaska, thank you so much for having this conversation and for making it a conversation, so that we can hear what's on people's minds and all the different ways that folks are trying to engage heritage and bring it to the forefront, to honor our history. And I don't remember who said the thing about Oklahoma. I'm actually from Oklahoma City originally. But, I was at a conference in San Francisco, the American Historical Association conference just this weekend, which is what I'm traveling back from. And my best friend is based in Tulsa, and she's talked a lot about the laws that are being put on the books for the state of Oklahoma in particular, as it relates to Black history, as it relates to complicated history. And, she asked the question, if we can't talk about this stuff within the public school system, then what are the other ways that we're going to be able to talk about this history? How are we going to supplement the fact that so much of this is getting concealed, restricted. The conversations are being restricted, and the work that you all are doing on the ground is part of that really important work. Okay, it was Narissa. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just really appreciate you lifting that up. Like a lot of this work is, it's part of, as so much of Black life is also a part of a resistance effort and uplifting our people, uplifting our stories, also about advancing, our material conditions as a people. I just want to thank everyone for coming out. We have if you registered, we might have your email. I want to reach out for anyone who's local in the Philadelphia area. We'll be having a heritage hangout pretty soon at the Central Library, January 25th from 5 to 7:30 to continue to build community, build relationship, and just, begin to sort of like see ourselves as a community of folks who are invested in, Black heritage preservation along many lines, whether it's archives, whether it's sacred sites, whether it's sacred places like churches and faith spaces as well. There's a lot to be said about that. So thank you all for joining us. And looking forward to continuing to build. And hopefully we'll be back next year to share a bit some more. And thank you all so much. Thank you, Alaska, for making time. And just want to wish everybody a great evening, a happy new year. It's January 8th. Maybe we got to stop saying that in 2 days, but thank you. And